David, hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, sir. It's been a while. It's been a week since I've seen you. I've been out
Yeah,
in your homeland of Tejas.
that's right. That's right.
I just want to say to all
Was
the
it?
Texas listeners, I thank God I do not live there.
Well, Rich and Kathy, that was their first location for investing in real estate was Texas. Was that correct?
That's right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. So,
Well, kind of. We house hacked first, and then our first kind of investment property and out of state was Texas.
and those did pretty well for you, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wish we'd kept them.
I know. I know. Me
Yeah,
too. Everything that I,
we have something in common that we didn't realize, Rich and Kathy. I've also invested heavily in Texas in my relationship with Stuart, and I would say that ROI is not only diminishing, but I think it's been a negative ROI for probably going on almost 3 decades now. So, Stu, you're my Texas investment, and it's not going well.
How is
Really?
that? That's really interesting.
Huh.
Oh, I'm kidding. I love Stuart.
he
It's been
he
an
likes to he
Okay.
likes to make
Oh,
fun.
I see.
amazing investment.
He likes to make
Oh, he's
fun.
the investment. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Stuart's the investment. No,
I
Stuart,
see.
the
He's the
person
investment. I was
of
like, oh, you got
Stuart.
real estate there? That's not ROI.
No, my Texas investment is Stuart. That's my Texas
Oh,
I'm
investment.
surprised.
Ah.
I'm surprised you said that was an investment. Normally, you say like I'm like a charity case or something
I
like
mean, at
that.
30 years, right? At 30 years, I've invested a big portion of my life at this point. So
Yeah,
yeah. It's that old saying, people are your greatest asset. So,
that's
that's right.
true. That's true.
And that in itself is the great transition, Rich, to kind of dive in. This podcast is not about us. This is about you guys. So, if you guys could just for our audience, give a little bit of background about who you are, and let's kind of go back to the beginning, and then where you are now.
I wiped
Kathy, I'll
through
let
that
you go
one.
first.
Yeah. Much more talented on a
Oh.
mic.
Oh, well, we today have a real estate investment group called RealWealth with over 77,000 members. We started over 20 years ago with very small audience. I think some of our first events, we were lucky to have one or two people, and that was fun. But it started with my desperate attempt to make sure that we were going to be okay. You know, women want that safety, right? I'm married to a high risk husband, at least physically. He competed in the X Games. He's jumped off bridges. He surfs hurricane waves. He jumps out of airplanes, all that. And nobody surprisingly would give him life insurance. I don't know why. But he did get a scare at kind of the peak of his career. I don't want to say the peak, but at a time when I was able to be a stay-at-home mom. His coaching career was just taking off. He was part of the formation of the ICF, the International Coach Federation, and had just written a book with Simon and Schuster, got a big book deal there. Everything was amazing. We just bought our first house and we had two little kids. And then he noticed a freckle. And he is a freckly guy. He's a redhead, but he noticed this one that was unique, and it turned out to be melanoma. Now, this again was 20 years ago. They didn't have the solutions they have today, so it was kind of a death sentence. He is alive and well today, and that wasn't the case. But at the time, the doctor thought it basically said it's a deep one. If it's done what we think it has, you probably have 6 months to live. So again, the doctor was wrong, but we're grateful for that moment and that scary time because it had me get off my butt and basically be like, what would I do? I don't have a backup plan. We've saved properly. We've done everything we were supposed to do, invested 10%, 10% in savings, 10% to charity, but you can run out of that really quickly. You know, it could even if you save for 30 years, it wouldn't be enough. So that's when we discovered real estate, the power of real estate.
Love that,
Well, well said. I
Rich.
don't have anything to add to that. Just, just that it was a challenging time. It's like, I heard Les Brown once say it's when you're really the most shaken up that you turn to God, and then you realize it's God who's actually doing the shaking. And so
I
that was a
love that.
time that we were really shaken up, that, it really rocked our world. So it was that really was the impetus for Kathy to say, what am I going to do here to make ends meet if I didn't have Rich around? So that, yeah. So that what seemed like a curse turned into a blessing.
And
Well, and
I
I
had a
also want
radio
to.
show. Yeah,
Oh,
I was
sorry. Go
a
ahead, Kathy.
I was gonna say I was a broadcaster before. So I still had a little radio show on the weekends, and that's when I just pivoted the content to, what is wealth, and what is passive income and how do you do it? And I just started interviewing people, authors, investors. And this was kind of before podcasts. And when to get real good investor training, real estate training, you had to go to these seminars and run to the back of the room and buy these $10,000
3-day
products.
guru product. Yeah.
Information wasn't
Mhm.
out there. So I was kind of on the forefront of opening up those secrets to the world,
Well, I love it. And also, I encourage all of our listeners to do a little bit of research in your background too, because Rich, you have a fascinating background with bodybuilding and the gym journey that you were on. And you guys highlight that. You highlight this in this book with I think it was under the partnership section when you talk about the value of partners. And Kathy, you also have just a fascinating background that got you to where you are. So I don't want anybody to think that you guys just like, man, you know what? We got to make a change. And you were highly successful. You had years and years of prep and practice and trial and doing things. And I'll tell you, this book, I'm gonna have to read it again because it's very, it goes very deep, right? It's almost like as I was reading, I'm like, man, this is like almost like an ideal roadmap to start a business. It's like an instruction book, but in a way that I don't think a lot of people really do it. Right. And so you guys broke
Mhm.
it into four sections and you started with, or four parts. I'm sorry. You started with, let's start with you. So let's start there. Cause I think it's critical. This is a huge step that a lot of business books I don't think spend enough time on. And you guys dive deep. I mean, you guys get really deep into the self-awareness aspect of it. And I'm just curious, it seems like this may be an area that's their biggest issue as they really dive in. And I'm curious if you agree with that and why is that? Like, why are we so lacking in self-awareness when we start these endeavors that potentially can take over our lives and become this a big part of who we are and what we do?
It's huge. I mean, that's why. So I think I should share the subtitle. So the book is Scaling Smart. The subtitle is How to Design a Self-Managing Business. And so it sounds like, a self-managing business is where you got a team of leaders who are running things. It frees you up to do what you're best at, what you love doing, whether that be work things or, family things, whatever it might be, or health things. But the focus of that is, Kathy and I met in a personal growth workshop. And so when we look at writing this book, Bigger Pockets asked us to write a book on how we scaled our business and how we created a self-managing business. And we looked at it, and our first thought to each other was, man, business is a never-ending personal growth workshop. You're constantly having to come back and say, how can I be a better leader? There's meltdowns and frustrations. There's things that go wrong, and you have to really rise up and be strong, be solid, be stoic, and really learn a lot of these things. So that's why we started the book. When we really looked at it, it's like, yeah, well, let's start with you. What is it that you want from your business? And really a focus on designing your business around your life instead of like what you were saying, Dave, is just so many people, they try to squeeze their life around their business. Their business is their full-time focus. And all of a sudden they feel like they don't have much time for their family and their health and themselves. So that's why we started with Let's Start With You. It's about what do you really want from your business?
Yeah, Rich has been coaching men, but men and women, but a lot of men have coached with
Mm.
him for years. And oftentimes they would come to him because they wanted to make more money. They wanted their business to be more successful. And Rich would, like you said earlier, like we've been working on this for a long time. But one of the things that Rich would say is, well, we're going to look at your whole life. And sometimes people would resist that. They'd be like, you don't need to talk about my marriage or my exercise routine. I mean, I hired you to help me with my business. And Rich would say, you'll probably say it better than me, honey, but it's like, well, if you don't invest in your health, well, if you don't invest in your spouse, you could lose 50% of your business or your
That's right.
wealth. And if you don't invest in your health, you could lose 100%. So we're going to look at the whole picture, basically.
I love that. I love that. What do they say about entrepreneurs? You choose to work an 80-hour a week schedule so you don't have to work a 40-hour per week job.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Like in the introduction to the book, we wrote a lot of people leave their 9 to 5 only to find themselves in the 24/7. It's just, it is the way it goes. It can go,
Yeah.
unless you are very clear on what outcome you want and how you want to. It's really about designing your business, not just letting your business run you.
Well, Stu, I know you have a great question, but I want to highlight one thing, Kathy, that I read a couple times that you mentioned in the book, and you were talking about one of the big reasons why you started a business was for time freedom. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are that way. And then you went deeper and highlighted, I have so much less time to do the things that I desire to do, that I've set our priorities, the family, the kids, all the things. And I started this business for time freedom, and I have less time than I've ever had. So I think it's a very, I think it's a point we all need to hear, especially if we have entrepreneurial bent or desires, is to understand going into it, hey, if you don't get this reined in, and you don't set the parameters, and you don't have a clear vision of why you're doing it and how you're going to do it, it'll very quickly, from a time perspective and an investment perspective, it'll go off the rails. I mean,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, for business owners or real estate investors. There's so much talk about, let's create financial freedom through real estate. And then we see a lot of DIYers, and, they create a job for themselves, and they're so overwhelmed and overloaded in their investing that they lose that freedom.
Yeah, I like to compare. It just came to mind, but like we have a house we're sitting in right now, on a hill, and it's beautiful. It's our dream. We dreamed about this 20 years ago. Had pictures on the wall, the dream board of where we are today. So I feel like we're living that dream. This house is the part of it people don't realize is there are Santa Ana winds that come, and it's crazy. It's like a hurricane all through November. The whole house shakes, but it's safe. And I just kind of look at business that way too. Like the winds are, man, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of force that comes in there. The more money you make, the more you see things you want, and the more money you want to spend, the more people you want to hire. You can grow yourself broke really fast, really easy. And if you don't have that solid foundation, and you don't really know what you're about, you will get blown all over the place.
Mm.
And unfortunately, well, fortunately or unfortunately, the more money you make, the more your weaknesses show up and your strengths show up. If you have addictions, they're going to 10x. If you have self-discipline and you're investing properly in the right things and you're focused on the right things, that will 10x. So it's just like, if you don't have that clear foundation of who you are, what you're about, what you want, what's important to you, it's easy to lose track of it.
So
We talk,
true.
we talk about giving. This month we're specifically talking about giving in our men's mastermind group. And a lot of people say that, I'll give 10%, 20%, whatever number that is, when I'm financially free, or when I'm
Yeah.
making so much money. You're like, no, like you're once a turd, always a turd. Like if you're not gonna give money like later, if you're not giving money now,
Yeah.
right? To Rich, to your point, I think it can be really, really dangerous, specifically in the real estate investor world. And we've seen it, we've been a part of it. We actually were prone to a little bit of this growing, scaling, more houses,
Yeah.
more doors, assets under management. You go to these conferences where like everybody speaks and just says, I own this much, right? Like, and that's kind of like their way of saying how cool they are. And there's this like danger of always wanting to grow, always wanting to have more. And I thought it was really interesting the way you differentiate scaling and growing. And then I love the section about bigorexia. Can you talk about that a little bit, and what's the difference, and then hone in on bigorexia?
Yeah, it's absolutely what you're saying. These conferences where we hear it the most. Kathy, I want you to just share your response, like your recent response, because so many people come up to us and they'll say, "How many doors do you have?" Right? It's the D measuring contest, right? And
Yeah.
so, Kathy, please share your response to that one.
Well, it kind of stems first from feeling not enough. Like literally, I'm like, oh, if I tell them the number, they're not going to be impressed. And I probably won't tell you now, but it's not that many. We don't own that many properties. But the response is usually, I don't care about how many doors you have or I have. What I care about is how much free time you have, how you're living your dream,
That's so
and how
good.
close you are
Love
to
that.
that.
Isn't that
It's
awesome?
just how
Yeah.
much free time do you have? Tell me that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the
That's
bigorexia
great.
came from, that was my years as a bodybuilder. I competed back in the 80s, of course, right? As a bodybuilder for about 10 years. And there was this thing that we called bigorexia. And bigorexia was we never felt big enough, no matter how swole we got, no matter even when I was 269 pounds, I still didn't feel big enough because I was comparing myself to the professional bodybuilders. And I was, reading the magazines, looking at them. So with bigorexia, what guys often do is they cover themselves up with big loose sweatshirts, big loose sweats. If you go to the gym, you look around, you see those big guys covered up because they have bigorexia. And it's like you would think that bodybuilders are the most uber confident, narcissistic guys, but inside there's a little weak heart that's saying, am I swole enough? Am I big enough? And they never feel that. And it's the same thing in real estate investing. It's the same thing in business. You start to compare yourself. It's an easy trap. You can start to compare yourself to other people. You go to a business conference, you go to a real estate conference, and you walk away, or social media, and you walk away from it thinking, man, I'm not enough. I don't have enough. I'm not big enough. And then what happens is you get in that trap, and then you start trying to grow your business or grow your portfolio. And the difference between growing and scaling is growing is when you throw a lot of resources to try to grow a lot more money, more capital, more people. You start hiring more people. You start taking riskier ventures into things just for the sake of growth. And like Kathy said, a lot of times the profits and the revenue don't increase as fast as the expenses. And that's where you can grow yourself broke. And the difference with scaling is when you really step back and you look at your business or your portfolio the smart way and you say, okay, what would the return on investment be for this investment? And how can we make more out of what we've already got? And so we're constantly at Real Wealth, we're constantly looking at our team and looking with our team at, okay, what is the most effective thing that we're doing? Where is 80% of our revenue coming from? And as always, it's usually 20% of our activities. So how can we focus on the 20% of activities that's going to get us more of that revenue instead of just throwing money at it and trying to grow, grow, grow? That's about scaling. So it's about leveraging your current assets to go bigger.
Yeah, I love that. I love that question too, Kathy. To reframe what's important. There was a lesson that I learned. Stu and I were part of a group a few years back, and one of the guys was like, "Man, my goal was 100 doors, 100 doors, 100 doors," and he got 100 doors, and then he was like $15,000 of negative cash flow a month, and he
Oh
like
yeah.
cut it in half, and
Mhm.
then his cash flow went up to like he was at like 40K plus a month. He's like, dude,
Great
I just had a
example.
$55,000 a month swing when I focused down. I got rid of this silly idea of 100. Well, for whatever reason, 100 doors is like such a romantic vision. I don't know why. But then another guy took it a step forward. He's like, dude, I've got like 10 doors. And he told us his cash flow. And I was just like, holy cow. Like it flipped everything on its head. And he's like, hey, dude, I'll take my 10 doors to your 200 doors every day of the week. But it was just a different mindset, right? And to that
Yeah.
mindset piece, I want to lean in just a tiny bit more on that. How do you guys get the people that you coach? How do you get them to lean hard into the self-development side? Like, how do you get it to stick? Because I think a lot of times when we talk through this stuff and you tell them, hey, you can lose 100% of your business, or you can lose 50% with your marriage. I feel like a lot of times it doesn't really, it's almost like yep, yep, got it. Okay. And sometimes it really sticks and people go hard in the paint, right? But I feel like a lot of times it just, for some reason, it's not there, it's not sticky. And I'm curious how
Mm.
you really get someone, no, let's sit in this and let's figure this piece out. And I'm also asking it very selfishly so that I'm getting a little bit of coaching right here to make it stick.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Uh, I mean, for me as a coach, what I'll often do is say, how did you get to where you are? How did you get the successes and what have you built up? And who did you have to become to get to where you are? And so it has the person reflect on where they have grown in their life and where they took a risk, where they got out of their comfort zone, where they And a lot of people say, it's when I started to really be disciplined, or it's when I really started to get out and put myself out there. Stu, like this morning, you had the post about your daughter and doing public speaking,
Oh
right?
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
they should train that in school, public
they
speaking,
should.
but they don't so often. So many schools don't. But just like that, so many people have responded to me. It's like when I started to get in front of a room and learn how to speak and all that, that's when things really changed for me. And I'll pull them back to say, how did you get that? How did you develop that skill? And I point out there is personal growth. You got better and everything around you got better. So that's my approach.
Kathy, any additions to that?
You know, my first radio show was personal development focused, and it just didn't really take off. It did a little bit. Like I did a coaching, like live coaching, live your dreams in 90 days, and it was this challenge. It was very cool. People followed the process of people breaking through their fears and so forth. But the show still didn't take off the way I wanted it to. And I was just reading my diary. I have it on my desk right now of that time and the struggle I had of trying to build this show, and there just wasn't interest. When I pivoted to the money piece, like money, all of a sudden the show took off. Everybody wanted to know how to make more money. And so I just think over time we have sprinkled in what really matters, you know. And so the carrot might be the money, but then we try to show that's just not everything. You know, what matters really is the things that matter to you. What is that? Um, so that's one is, I don't know. I just kind of, for me, it was around how do I say, a roundabout way. But then we started having Rich come to our events in January and do what he calls the Focused Investor Seminar. And this is where he takes people really deep into this future meditation, this meditation that takes them into meeting their future self and ask questions of what would you want to ask your future self, and what is your future self asking you? And it is unbelievable how people come out of that changed. And we look at the room and there's grown men sobbing, which is beautiful. We love it. So there's something about really going into that deep place, eliminating the distractions, like I said before, and meeting this part of you that you maybe haven't taken the time to meet. So we now have that recording on our website so people could go and meet their future self on their own. I don't know what it is about Rich's voice that just takes you there. But I can tell you over and over again, we just had someone here last night who said they did the focused investor, they did the future self exercise, saw this piece of land, was like, this is a place where we're going to be having amazing memories with the family. And then they found that piece of land, so
Yeah, Coeur d'Alene.
it's crazy how it works. But if we just did a workshop of, hey, come and meet your future self, I'm not sure we'd have a big crowd.
Right, exactly.
So
It's so true. Yeah, you got to hook them with the money.
yeah,
Yeah.
hook them with the money.
It saddens me a little bit, but it's oh so true.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's why Kathy and I signed up for that personal growth workshop where we met, was that it was like the increase your profits. I know that Kathy's office manager got her to go to this seminar that she had attended. And the way she went about it was like, I've got a seminar that's going to help you increase your business profits and make more money. And
Mm.
so Kathy signed up for it. And it was maybe 10% of that.
Curveball.
Yeah.
They
But,
threw you a
and at the
curveball.
same time, what you get from it and that growth and learning who you are and what holds you back and all that stuff, it is absolutely instrumental in where we are today.
Well, Rich and Stu, I'm going to go out of order because they brought it up. But one of
Yeah,
my
I know.
questions was actually, I was going to ask you to talk about the vision quest that you took your team on. And I love when you talked about it, and I want our audience to hear the story, not only to be encouraged by the story, uh, but also to give them permission to do their own, and I'll use your words, to do their own California woo woo stuff, I think is how you phrased it in the book.
100%.
But I loved it because you said and to use that to drive culture. And I love on the book how
Mm.
you mentioned, you said it was, I'm paraphrasing here, but you said it was really weird, but it was super impactful.
Mm.
And that stuck with me because I really, if you don't mind, just give just kind of a brief synopsis of what it is, because I want our audience to have permission to do these types of things, because as you just highlighted, they make a huge difference. And a lot of people I think are hesitant, especially when we're trying to drive culture and build businesses that reflect our
Mm.
values and what's important. They're afraid to do some of these things, but it works, right? And so I think coming from you would be better than coming from someone like me, because I'm like, dude, that David dude's just a weird guy, and plus he's, he hasn't built amazing businesses. But Rich and Kathy, that they have, so they'll listen.
Oh yeah, it's so funny. No, it's, I grew up in Boston, which is, can be a cynical place, so that's why I call it the California woo woo. I moved to California in 1995. I met Kathy 6 months later. And yeah, doing a lot of these exercises, for me, it was like eye-opening. It's just like, whoa, I can go into the future and see my future in my own mind. And I'm like, whoa, this is kind of woo-woo, but I like it. It's really cool. I get a lot out of it. So yeah, we brought that to our team. We've been doing it for so many years. And it has had a very much a positive impact on our culture, because what we do is we get our whole team together. We got our company retreat coming up this weekend in San Antonio. So since we're a virtual company, we love to get everyone together so they can be face to face and hang out and play and party and all that great stuff. And then what we often do, or always do, is we'll do this kind of a vision quest. And it's just, I get everyone to close their eyes and we literally get into kind of a meditated space. And what you're really doing is you're kind of putting that inner gremlin, the negativity bias aside. And it's just like, just for this next 10 minutes, let's like not worry about this being possible. Let's just think about, what would your future look like if everything turned out just right? And then I just guide everyone through this visualization where they literally go out to space on a beam of light and come back on a different color beam of light. And then they land in their future 10 years. And for our team, I just say, imagine that now you're coming back to Earth and you're coming back to our annual retreat, but it's 10 years in the future. Notice where we are, notice where this annual retreat happens, and look around, look who's here. Get a feeling of this energy. And now imagine that there's a big slide up on the wall. There's a big thing and there's a number. What is that number? And now there's a big announcement. What's that announcement? And what are you most proud of? So there's like probably about 10 different questions. And then after I ask everyone to open up their eyes, come back to the room, and then we got the whiteboard. I say, what'd you guys see? And everyone is sharing these just inspiring things. Like, I saw that we've helped investors acquire over $3 billion worth of assets. That was up on the slide. I see that we're a $20 million company. I see that I'm in this new position of overseeing this department, all these different things. And we get all the stuff loaded up on a whiteboard, and then we kind of combine it together and we put it into a vision statement. And so it's created by the team for the team. And it creates this beacon where, like, in the future, when things get mucky today, when you're in the swamp and you feel like, I don't know if I can keep going, it's like that neon sign across the swamp that's like, hey, remember, this is where we're going. This is what you want. And it gets everyone aligned. Everyone gets stoked. Everyone works together. So the culture impact of it is huge. And I really don't think we would have the culture we have if we didn't do that future self visualization.
Kathy, go ahead. You're gonna say something.
It's a different topic, but it just reminded me of, like, when I started the business, it was very much about me. It's like, I wanted to learn. I wanted to grow wealth. I wanted a backup plan. I wanted security. And then that really took off and the business grew. And then as it grew, I didn't know how to handle it. I got overwhelmed. I talk about that in the book. Most visionaries do get overwhelmed because they're just doing too many things. They don't understand structure and accountability. So I begged Rich, hey, you're coaching all these executives and they're changing their lives. Do you think you could coach me and our marriage could survive? Do you think we could build this company together? And, we've learned a lot of, challenges and also ways to make it work. But one of the big things is that he taught me how to go from saying my company and I to we and our. And that was really hard. It's like, if it is my company and I make the decisions. But once he showed me, like, to be a leader, how are you going to have empowered leaders if it's about you? They're not everybody was put on this planet to make your life better. They want to make their lives better. And the moment it became a we and our company, they took so much ownership that now literally we get on Zoom calls and just watch. They just run the company. We could just leave for a few months and it'd probably be better off, right? Because they're so empowered. So part of this process when Rich came in was to have them create the values, to have them create the goals, to have them be excited about what that was. And back then, millennials were the young people. Today it's Gen Z, but millennials were the babies. And what was important to them was charity. So they wanted to donate. They wanted to donate profits. And they came up with this goal of giving $1 million away. And that got them so excited. They couldn't wait,
That came from the future self
Yeah.
visualization. Yeah.
That's so cool. There's a theme that I'm starting to see with everything you two are doing, and you're doing the hard stuff first, right? You're doing the personal development stuff. You're pouring into people. You're creating processes and systems. You are doing the hard work of figuring out your core values and your blueprint and your strategy and your mission and your vision, your purpose, all that stuff. It's hard and it takes time and it takes effort. And I see so many business owners, real estate investors just put the cart before the horse and just go right into like doing business, picking partners that don't align and all these things. And they end up failing. And I think that one of the reasons David and I have been, quote unquote, successful is that we also had some really hard conversations. Like we were college roommates for 4 years. We're best friends. And we had some really hard conversations and went through the hard stuff and asked each other really hard questions about what happens if, right? What do we do when? And there's some hard stuff that comes out of that. And there might be some tears, there might be some like anger and frustration, but it comes back to doing the hard stuff first. And, for you two, what have you seen in your coaching and in your businesses of like the impact that it's made within your people, and then the impact that it's made within, the people that are buying investments from you and doing business with you, that difference between doing the hard stuff first?
I mean, I think it's in the name of our business, Real Wealth, and it's what we started with. It's how going back to the beginning of how we met, where I was so phony that I was in the news business, and I walked around that way in the most fake way you can imagine, like a newscaster. And at this personal development weekend, they had me say what they could see that I didn't believe about myself, which, I mean, I'll just say it. I had to say, I'm a powerful leader and I deserve to be loved. Very simple sentence, right? But you had to say it in front of the group. And until they stood up and clapped, they didn't believe you. If they believed that you believed it, they would stand up and clap. And if they didn't, they just sit there and stare at you. So I get up in my business suit and my makeup and my hair is perfect. And I'm like, I'm a powerful leader and I deserve to be loved, like a newscaster. They just stare at me. And then so I had to keep saying it. And then I broke. And that's when I just started sobbing and tears, my makeup down my face, my hair a mess. And that's when I looked up and saw Rich. This is the moment that we fell in love. I look up and he's there just holding me. I just met him. And it's like I was so raw and real. So it helped that I was able to take that ego, image away at the very moment that we met. But a lot of people haven't gone through that break. So they're still putting on this facade and they don't maybe even know who they are behind that. So Real Wealth, the name of our company is real, like real wealth. Like what is real wealth to you? And one story I think that it exemplifies it is this investor that came to us, or just a person who said, I just want to be an artist. I just want to do my art. I want to do that all day. I don't want a job. What will it take? So it was like, okay, well, let's just look at what your expenses are. And we built everything around this dream. And it turns out he could really live on about $3,000 a month. He didn't need a lot. So we were able to design a financial plan. Within 6 months, he had $3,000 a month, just moving some assets around. to where he had 3,000 passive income and could be a full-time artist. And this lit his soul. But if he didn't know that, how would he know how to design his life around this dream? So he, to me, was the greatest success story. It's not, oh, look, he bought a Ferrari and the house on the hill. No, he's living his dream. And guess what? You can become a really successful artist if you could pour yourself into it, right? So he was. But that's just an example of like real wealth. What is real wealth to you? And only you can define that.
Love it.
I love that.
Good.
That is that's incredible. And I think, you know, I think a lot of times we pick up these, and you guys even address it in the book, but a lot of times we pick up business books with the hope and the desire to come out of them with really something as simple and insignificant as, I just want to raise revenue. And I say insignificant. If that's all that's driving you, raising revenue, getting rich, whatever, buying the car, like that stuff is so fleeting and it's just not that important. But if you realize, you know, Stu and I talked about this the other day, we're like, how much do we need? Right.
Mhm.
And at what point are you sacrificing what you truly desire and how God gifted you and the blessings that you have and the blessings that you can give others with meaningless time? And have you ever quantified that, or have you ever defined that? And I think it's such a powerful thing. And so you guys, there's one, and we haven't even scratched the surface of this book. We could talk for hours. It could be a multi-part podcast. But Kathy, you tell this story, and I love it because it reflects some of the change that you're talking about. And I think it was one of the kind of the subsets, and it's called a real example of PMV. And, you know, for listeners, PMV, purpose, mission, value. And you were talking about the development, but you said you were irritated at Rich because you guys, it was after the recession. You guys' doors getting beat down because business, you had a lot of things to do. And you said, you know, we don't have time
We
to
don't have time
discuss
for
these
this. What, you
fluffy,
can make us sit down and
these
talk about
fluffy things.
values?
Yeah,
What? Our phones are ringing.
exactly. Right. You called it fluffy stuff. Like, why are we talking about fluffy things like vision and values? But I think so many entrepreneurs live in this space. I think that's exactly where they live, and that's exactly what they need. They just don't know what they need. And I'm just curious, how can you take that conversation and no kidding, have a real ROI discussion? How can you quantify the ROI of those types of decisions and those processes to get to PMV, to help motivate and to really help entrepreneurs seriously consider PMV alignment?
You know, the vision that just came to my mind was like Rich just going like this, like just going back to the wind metaphor. It's like, stop. And so for him, he has very clear boundaries. And he's like, we'll put a voicemail that says, we're taking the day off. That easy,
That's
right?
it.
That's it. And so he carves it out. That's all I can say. Most of us are chasing, like
Mm,
the list, the to-do list. I've got more to do. And he writes about it in his first book, Extreme Success, of you know, taking Fridays off. If you can't get your work done Monday through Thursday, you're not being effective. So how could you be very effective so that you can have an amazing Friday and go rock climbing or be with the guys? A lot of guys feel very lonely. They don't have time for their friends. And so he carved it out. He said, no, you know, basically that's the best I can say. He's amazing at boundaries. So he taught us how to do that and how to teach our clients how we operate, you know, and how we operate is during Christmas, we take the week off. You know, if it's an emergency, you can call us, but
My whole
otherwise,
team. Yeah.
we're
My whole
living
team.
real wealth, you know?
Mhm.
So, you know, I don't know, Rich, what would you add to that?
For me, a lot of it, it's all that. Yes, thank you for the acknowledgement. But it was something about, for our purpose, mission, the reason I was so adamant about, no, we need to do this, was through mentors and examples. And so it came from, you know, virtual mentors, Jim Collins reading his book, Beyond Entrepreneurship. And then it came from the CRM we use, Infusionsoft, the founders of that company, a 500-person company making millions and millions of dollars. And they put on a program called the Elite Forum. And we went to this Elite Forum. It's like a weekend workshop, learning how to grow your business, learning how to scale your business. And that was one of the big things that they recommended. And we're like, oh, okay, we'll do it. We'll just got to do the work. So we did the work. And one, it was because I respected them so much. Like, wow, if they must know something that we don't. So we did that for our business. Then we came back and we did it with our whole team. And then after that, the next 3 years, we hit the Inc. 5000 list of America's fastest growing companies. So, and I was like, what did we change? And the only thing that we changed was getting clear on our purpose, our mission, our vision, our values, and having this team alignment. It just increased our profitability tenfold. So it was like, I see that as an example for others. So then, writing Scaling Smart, and in that book, we talk about it. It's like, just trust us, do this for your company. Because what will happen is most likely to you is you're going to be on that list of America's fastest growing companies.
So good. What comes to mind as we're talking through this, I would make a safe assumption that you two get offered for partnerships quite often. Like,
Mhm.
you do a bunch of conferences, you're speaking, you're writing books, you're doing podcasts. I would guess that a lot of people come to you and offer opportunities, investments, partnerships. How how do you choose the right partners? How do you say yes to some and probably no to a whole lot of others? Like, what do you differentiate? Like, what makes a good partner?
Kathy's the expert
Yeah, I
here.
mean, I guess it comes back to, like I just said, having those boundaries, and boundaries are having the vision. And, it's like if you know what you're trying to create, then it's really easy to have boundaries. It's just like, yeah, this doesn't fit. Or, it's the same as a buy box in real estate. It's like, this is what we're looking for. And wow, does that save you time? You don't have to look at anything else. It's like this, we focus on 1 to 4 unit residential in the fastest growing markets, at the same median existing home price or less than. So it just makes it easy. It's easy to have those boundaries and not give any attention to anything that doesn't fit that, because there are so many things that will be interesting or exciting. And I'm the guiltiest of them all, of wanting to do it all. And as a result, I picked bad partners and I did bad deals and I went down the wrong path when actually we were on the right path. If I just stuck with the path that we were on, it would have saved a lot of time and effort and pain and heartache and loss. Um, so I don't want anyone to think that I had the magic pill from the beginning. I probably had 20 bad partners over the last 20 years. I was terrible at it. So today, I think, again, having that super clear, this is who we are, this is what we do. And sure, I mean, I don't even want to hear your pitch because it's not what we do. So I'm not going to waste my time with it or get distracted. So again, having that clear foundation is super helpful. From there, I think Rich could probably talk about how we hire the right partners. Like that's, um, yeah, like what we look for in bringing people onto the team.
Hey, I'm going to go big picture here because just what the things you were bringing up, Kathy, it's having a tool to do that is really powerful. And like Kathy said, having a buy box. So I used to do this for my coaching clients. Kathy did it before she met me. She made a list of what she was looking for in a man, and I fit most of those.
Everything
And
except two
yeah,
things.
it's like and it really works. So it's getting very clear. I just brought it up. I was just looking at Kathy and I have our ideal friends list. I don't know if that doesn't show up too well, but our ideal friends list. We just sat down and we said, who are our ideal friends? Because we had some relationships that went south, and we're like, oh wow, why were we in that relationship when the person just didn't fit our values and who we're about and all that. And so we made this ideal friend list. So we do that when we're going to hire a new employee. We're like, what's the position description, and who's the ideal person for this? So we get clear on that. Whether it be a partner in a syndication, we get really clear. I did it for my publisher. When I went into Simon and Schuster, I had created this list of the 7 qualities of my ideal publisher. And we're in these meetings. I'm going with my agent from Viking Penguin over to Random House, over to Simon and Schuster. And at Simon and Schuster, my agent says, "Hey, Rich, tell them what your ideal publisher is all about." And I was like, that was like for us to know, But he called me out, and they're like, "Yeah, tell us." And I was able to read, my ideal publisher is this. And it flipped the conversation where instead of me trying to sell myself on them, all of a sudden they were selling themselves to me. They're like, oh yeah, we do that. We're like that. We'll support you in the marketing. We'll be clear on the editing. We'll do the promotions and all this stuff. So I think that's a powerful thing, is just get really clear on what's the buy box for your ideal partner, and include on there what you don't want. And so that way, when you notice that person, it's like, oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's critical to highlight, and kind of back to the question, when you talk about quantifying ROI and these things, uh, how do you, I think the argument is always like, wow, it's fluffy, whatever, but take the opposite approach, right? Take the opposite approach and go, well, how much does it cost me to hire poorly? How much does it cost me to break bad partnerships? How much does it cost me to do bad deals? And so I think that really also flips the script of this is exactly what I want, and this is who I want to spend my time with, where I want to be around, how I want to hire. And I love that, because I almost think the ROI at that point is incalculable, because it's so great. And there's so many ways that, excuse me, the ROI, just from a personal satisfaction and a joy of who you hang out with, where you spend your time, the positivity. I mean, I had a conversation on the way into work today, and I called for a very specific purpose, but I knew going into the conversation that I wanted to try to add value and serve this person. But I knew going into the conversation that I already knew the tone, the way the hello was going to come across, from this individual. I just knew it. But the point of the call, literally what drove me, I was like, God, give me the grace to have this conversation, because it was an important conversation, but you just know, right? And I think it's so critical when you assess these things. It's powerful. And I love it. And I want to respect your guys' time. But gosh, I wish we should book 2 hours too. Our bad. We guys probably wouldn't agree to that, but
Do a Joe Rogan.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep this thing running. But I also want to highlight to our listeners, this book is also very, very practical, right? Like, there are no kidding like, it's not just, oh, do PMB and this is, fluffy and no, it's like, this is no kidding the list, like A to Z, how you do this. And not just A to Z, but A subscript 1, 2, 3 with another bullet. Like,
Thank
it
you.
like goes down, right? And the last part, I just want to highlight, when I started reading the Let's Get Nerdy, is really eye-opening. Just even the simple idea of, and Kathy, I'm more like you. I'm like more, I don't like diving in. Stu's more like the diving into the detail. But when you broke down processes versus systems, like, I've always said things like, oh man, process oriented, systems important, but I've never actually distinguished, no, what is a process and what is a system? And you guys get to that level of granularity. And so I really want to highlight, this book is not just like a fluffy, let's do future vision things and come up with values. It's not that at all. It's very much like, no kidding. No. Like, you need to break down, what is your process? Oh, do you know that processes make up systems and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was fascinating. So what an amazing book, and what a blessing. And like I said, for my personality, I have to go back into it, because Kathy, I love when you're talking about the business, your business org chart, the original one, it was like Kathy, CEO, Kathy, like, all the roles were like Kathy and Rich. It was beautiful, but really highlighting, how do you get out of that, right? How do you get out of that to build a business, to scale a business, to really serve not only yourself, because there's an aspect of that, but to serve your clients, to serve your team, and to really be a mechanism, a tool for something vastly greater than a real estate company, and have lasting impact and eternal significance, right? It's pretty incredible. So this book offers all of that. And so I want to thank you guys for penning it.
Thank you. That's so well said. We want to bring you on our book tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great.
Kathy, one last question. This is a really serious question. You're talking about buy box. What if I'm asking for a friend.
This
What
is
if
not a
you're
serious question.
realizing that 25 years later, of like a best friend status, your best friend isn't fitting within that buy box that you had come up with?
You're asking for a friend?
I'm asking for a friend. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
this
cool.
other guy that was wondering about that.
Yeah. Like your college roommate or something.
Yeah,
Something that just
someone like
doesn't
that.
fit in.
Somebody that
Doesn't-
may have gone to the Naval Academy at the same
May.
time that he did, and potentially
Just
is bald.
asking for a friend.
I mean, but he's asking for a friend.
Hey, last thing before we jump off, Kathy, back to your original discussion about, what do I do when Rich has cancer and I'm freaking out and I need some support, some strength, some security. You're now supporting other women in coming up with that plan, right?
Mhm.
And can you hit on just real fast what you're doing for your future women's retreats that you're guiding women through? It sounds really awesome.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited to. I've got it right in front of me, my diary of like
Cool.
remembering the struggle. And it's the struggle is real. Like I don't want to forget what that took. So I know that a lot of women still today aren't that involved with in their finances, or even if they are, they um I don't know. There's still a lot of growth that women need to have. Look, we still don't have a female president. We won't get into that, but I am still often the only woman on the stage at events. There'll be like 9 guys and me. And so what is it? I know that there's capable women out there, but there's some link that's missing of whether it's confidence or belief, or just being able to put yourself out there. So we're just going to really start with again, part 1 of the book is like, who are you? What's important to you? And most importantly, understanding your strengths and and maybe the weaknesses where you need that support. So
Love it.
yeah, going to be starting women's groups. We're going to have fun, do retreats, and also increase in financial intelligence across the board.
So good. Well, where do we send women to find out about your retreat, Kathy? Where do we send all of our listeners to read the book and dive in more?
Our website, realwealth.com, is just full of resources for people wanting to build wealth, and it has all our upcoming events, and our coaching program will be there. We don't have it up there yet, but we will.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Rich and
and
Kathy, this
the
has
book's
been
everywhere, and
The
so
book's everywhere.
easy to
Yep.
find everywhere. Yeah.
this
Scaling Smart.
fantastic read, like David said. And Rich and Kathy, this has been a fun conversation. As always, thank you for coming on. Guys and gals, go read Scaling Smart, and women, go sign up for Kathy's next retreat. They are amazing human beings. Thank you for being on.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys.